What did the triangle say to the circle? You're pointless. Get it? The circle doesn't have any points. Oh, Miss La Rosa, you're so funny. Thank you. I know. All right. Corniness aside, let's get into simple interest today. Still more money stuff. So, the simple interest formula is I equals P R T. The way I remember is I per D, I per T. That's how I remember it. So the I stands for interest. How much money? Interest is amount of money. P stands for the principal. It's spelled PAL, like the principal of a school. The principal is your original amount of money. R stands for the rate. The rate that you get interest. That's a percent that you need to turn into a decimal so that you can work with it. If you don't turn into a percent, you're going to get a very wrong number. And then T is equal to time in years. Your T is your time in years. Lowercase t there, lowercase t. So if the numbers are just side by side, what operation is that when they're just side by side like that? That's just straight multiplication. I multiply my principal times my rate times my time, and that'll give me the amount of interest. The amount of interest. That's how much extra money. That's extra money. Let me add that. Interest is extra money. Sometimes that extra money is good. Sometimes that extra money is good. If you keep money in a bank account, most banks will give you interest. So if you just keep money in that bank account, you don't spend it, it just sits there, they'll pay you interest. They'll give you free money just for having money in your bank account. That's good interest. A bond, I don't know if they're as popular anymore, but when I was growing up, like my grandparents and my great grandparents, they put money into a bond, which meant that they gave the government money so the government could spend now. But then when I got older, that amount of money increased. So like maybe they gave me $100, that bond turned into like $500 or $600. So that was a good interest. They got free money just from putting it aside. But then there's also bad interest. If I have a credit card, every time I pay it, every time I spend my credit card somewhere, I pay the bank the amount of money that they let me borrow to buy those items, those clothes, my car, whatever. But then I have to pay them interest on top of it. So I pay for however much that those clothes cost me, plus extra money because they let me borrow it. Or maybe I took out a loan to buy my car because I don't just have $30,000 laying around to buy my car. So I borrowed money from the bank and I have to pay them back that $30,000 plus some extra money because they let me borrow it. So sometimes interest is good and sometimes interest is bad. It just kind of depends on what the situation is. So this formula just tells me how much extra money it's going to be. The extra money that I get for free or the extra money that I have to pay. But if I want to figure out the total amount, so maybe the total amount of money in my bank account or the total amount of money I'm going to have to pay back on my credit card, I have to do one more step. To figure out the T, the capital T, the total amount, the total amount of money, notice it's different from time. Time's a little t, total amount's a big T. In order for me to get that total amount, I need to take my principal, the amount of money I started with, and I add the interest. I take the principal, the amount of money I started with, and I add my interest to figure out my total amount. So this first formula, just multiplying. The second one, I'm adding those two together. We've got 2 examples, and then we'll keep getting into our extra practice for the day. Our first example says Alicia borrowed $3,000 from the bank for college at a rate of 12% simple interest per year. How much interest did she pay after 4 years? So remember, we want to start off with our formula. Start off with our I PRT. I equals PRT. Remember, the I, that's the interest. That's how much extra money. I is the amount of extra money. The P is the principal, not Mr. Mizell. What does the principal stand for again? The principal is your original amount. So what was the original amount of money that Alicia borrowed in this situation? My principal here was $3,000. That was the original amount. So $3,000 times my rate. Remember, your rate is a percent that we turn into a decimal. So here my rate is 12%. Move that decimal point to the left. So I multiply that times 0.12. And then I take that times my number of years, my time in years, which here we see is 4. Now that we've picked out our numbers, we need to plug it into our calculator. Let me find my calculator. Here it is. So I'm going to take my $3,000 times my 0.12 times 4. And I see that the amount of interest, that extra money, is going to be equal to $1,440. Now we need to go back and read the question to see if we answered it there, or do we have to do this extra step to calculate the total amount? Let's read and see what it says. It says, how much interest did she pay after 4 years? So I'm not looking for the total amount. I only want to know the interest, which is what this formula shows. This formula just shows interest. So that means that she's going to pay an extra $1,440 for that loan. That's not the total amount. That's just the extra, just the interest that she's going to pay. If I wanted to find the total, I would have to take that interest and add it to my principal, that $3,000. But that's not what it's asking here. Always want to make sure that we're answering what they're asking. The next question says Quincy deposits $400 in a new bank account that earns 4% simple interest per year. What is the total amount in the account after 3 years? So again, let's start off with our formula. I PRT. Again, you don't have to have that memorized. I think it's on your, I lied, you do have to have that memorized. Here's your 8th grade cheat sheet for the SOL. It has geometric formulas on there. I don't see the simple interest formula, so you do have to have that memorized. So when you see interest, think I PRT. You need to have that memorized. So again, remember, interest is the extra amount. Interest is the extra amount. P, the principal. P, the principal. R is the rate. T is the time. I'm going to pause the video. You try filling in this bit on your own. You try filling in just the formula on your own. Your principal was 400. Your rate was 4%, which is 0.04. And your time was 3 years. So if we plug that in our calculators, 400 times 0.04 times 3 is equal to 48. So again, that interest, that free money that you're going to get 48 free dollars from your bank. I don't mind 48 free dollars. It doesn't seem like a lot, but I could do something with that money. Now again, we need to read the question and make sure we have it, see if we have it answered. This one says, what is the total amount in the account after 3 years? Does the I represent the total amount? It does not. That is not the total amount. Remember, to calculate the total, I need to add the principal plus the interest. So I'm not quite done yet. The total amount is the principal plus the interest. That's what we're trying to solve for. The total amount is equal to my principal, that $400 that we started with, plus the interest that we calculated from up here, plus that $48. What's 400 plus 48? $448 that Quincy's going to have in that bank account. Again, it's very important that we're reading the question to see, do we only need the interest or do we need the total? That's going to be huge in getting these problems right or wrong, okay? So take the time to understand them. If you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, go ahead and get into what we're working on today.